Good afternoon, my fellow lecturer and friends. I'm Gavin Timothy D'Souza.
I'm Michelle.
I'm Jonathan Francis D'Souza.
I'm Yu Ying.
I'm Chang Zixing.
It doesn't matter how we look,
Right now, this is our take on gender equality.
how we speak,
I'm going to pass the time to my
what color
teammate
we are.
Michelle.
Hi, I'm Michelle, and I'll be talking about the introduction of the NGO.
In the end,
The NGO that we chose is the
we're all the same
European
on the
Institute for Gender Equality (EIGE).
We all
Before I
laugh,
start, I would like to briefly talk
we all
about
cry,
what is gender equality and
we all
why
feel
do we
joy,
need it. So, gender
we all feel
equality
pain.
is when persons of all genders have equal rights,
It's time to
duties,
stop
and
the
opportunities.
discrimination.
For example, it may suggest that women and men should be paid
Hello
equally for
everybody,
doing
this
the
is my
same
friend
work,
Monique, and
or
she
that
is here
they
to
should
talk
be
about
treated
her
differently
experiences based
using
on
various
gender discrimination.
medical
My
medications and
experience with gender
procedures to
discrimination
achieve
starts when I was
equality in
really young, so I
healthcare.
didn't really understand it at the time.
Moving on, why
But
we need gender
self-reflection over the
equality?
years
It is
has
because gender
helped me
equality
understand it.
protects women and
So
girls
it
from
starts
abuse.
when
It is
I was
necessary
7.
for
My parents split up,
economic growth. Besides, women and men
I ended
are
up living
valued
with my dad.
equally
He
in
got full
societies that
custody
are
of
safer
us.
and healthier.
It's a long
Equality
story I'll
between
get
men
to
and women
later.
is a fundamental human right, and
But so it
therefore
was me
gender
and my younger
equality
brother. He was
helps
about 6
everyone.
months when my parents split up.
The European Institute
And
for Gender Equality
at
(EIGE)
7
was
years old,
established to contribute to
assumed
and
like all of
promote
the
gender
responsibilities that I
equality.
took on
Our
were
ambition is to
completely
become the
okay.
European Knowledge
Not to
Center
sound
for
ungrateful
Gender
or anything,
Equality
but
issues.
you know,
EIGE's
7, you don't
mission
expect
is
them
to
to be cooking
deliver
or cleaning
high
or
quality
eventually
research
getting
and
their
data
sibling out of bed to go
to
to
help
school and helping them do their
decision
homework and
makers
stuff.
make
That
better
all happens to be
evidence-based
parental duties.
decisions. In
So
addition,
from a very
I will talk
early
about
age,
the
I
background
was
history of EIGE.
I
The
had to take a
Shakers,
lot of
a
responsibilities
devoted
that are
fundamentalist
often deemed
sect,
motherly.
were one of
Taking
the
cleaning,
first to advocate
changing my
for
younger brother's
gender
diapers, you
equality.
know, helping them
In
develop
1778, Joseph McCombs, the
and
Shakers'
at the time,
chief
because my dad
minister,
was a single
had a
parent, he
vision
was working
and declared that
2 to 3 jobs.
both sexes
And we
should
were
be
moving around a
treated
lot.
equally. A woman
So
did not have to
stability
be
wasn't really
dominated
a
or owned
mainstay
by a man in Shaker
my
culture.
life when
The
I was
Shakers
younger.
were more than a religious community made up of profound
I
fundamentalists.
noticed
Women's
once I got
jobs
older,
are
about middle
1.8
school,
times more
when my
vulnerable
brother
to
was my
layoffs
age,
than men's,
I mean,
accounting
our
for
parents said,
54% of all
so
layoffs.
he
Furthermore,
have the same
our objectives are
responsibilities,
to raise
he
public
didn't have the
awareness
same,
about the
he didn't
problem
hold up to the
of
same
gender
standards.
equality and to explain why the
And
message
at that
should
point
be
in
shared
time,
internationally.
my dad's
Besides,
abusive
to
side
offer
really
a
started to
helping
kick in.
hand to
He was
international
abusive to my mom
NGOs
in the
and
first place, like he
organizations
really
that
started being
speak
abusive
out
until
about
middle
the
school.
advantages
But
and reasons
the
why
discipline
gender
standards were
equality
a
is
little
the
bit
path
different between me and
to
my brother.
success. That's all from me, and now
I
I'll
was a
pass
little
it on to
frustrated when I
Gavin.
was younger.
Okay, so guys, right now I'm going to talk about what happens when there is no gender equality. So when there's no gender equality, right, basically what happens is there will be certain barriers for women to education, which will imply to a lack of access. Thus, women do not get the necessary skills needed for them to further their career in the future. Thus, this will cause a series of chain reactions for them. So it starts with women not having proper education, thus resulting in fewer job opportunities for them in the future. By having fewer job opportunities and prospects in the future, they will also have a lack of employment as they may not be used and they may not have often received job interviews of sorts. Legal jobs might also be highly likely to be restricted for them as people in the corporate world feel that they are not ready and not suitable for the job in the corporate world. there is the element of job segregation that exists even today. So where does job segregation come from? It comes from the belief and thinking that men are more superior to women and are much more capable of handling jobs and roles within the workplace. Thus, this results in men getting a significantly higher income and women getting a significantly lower income. And in addition, women are also given unpaid labor, and their additional work that they have are not financially recognized, and this will and the cost of medical fees will incur to these people. If there's no gender equality, in addition, there are also no legal protections that could be provided to shield women from potential harm by vile and disgusting people who would want to come and abuse them and sexually assault them as well. Thus, these women become even more afraid and would limit their activities, thus hampering their potential and work rate as well. So right now, I'm going to talk about why gender equality should be implemented in the society itself. This is because the very concept of gender equality, if implemented, will prevent violence and discrimination towards females in general. This will allow them to feel safer and much more secure, which will allow them to express and articulate their thoughts and ideologies, which could prove beneficial to the society in the future. Thus, in the long run, it will also be great for the global economy in the long run. If gender equality is implemented also, women will be given paid labor as well. And this allows them to carry out their labor duties and at the same time keep them motivated with the extra wage, time and salary that they would need in order to have their maternity leave being fully utilized and also having to cover up the cost of the medical fees which could incur to them as well. Gender equality should also be implemented as it is in fact a human right and should be enforced more thoroughly, as both sides of the gender spectrum should be given the chance and opportunity to live together with one another in a peaceful and harmonious world and environment. It will also make communities safer, as unequal communities tend to disagree with one another and have conflicts with one another quite often, which would make them a less cohesive unit altogether. Right now, I would like to pass the time to my teammate Jonathan.
Alright, thank you, Gavin. In addition to viewing gender equality as important, most people are optimistic that women will eventually have the same rights as men in their country. Majority in 30 of the 34 countries surveyed hold this view, including roughly 90% in the Netherlands, India, the Philippines, and Mexico. In the US, around 75% believe gender equality is likely. In addition to 14% volunteer the response that women already have the same rights as men. 1 in 10 or more in the most central and eastern European nations, as well as Ukraine, Greece, Italy, Russia, Israel, and Tunisia, agrees that women and men already have equal rights. Across most countries, women are less optimistic than men about the likelihood of attaining gender equality. For example, 77% of men in Japan thinks either men and women already have equal rights. That it is likely they will have in the future, compared with 58% of Japanese women. Similar gender differences can be found in 20 other countries, including
Here I am now in
roughly
the seat,
15% point
studying
difference in
political science
Spain,
and
South
gender
Korea,
studies.
France, Italy, and Brazil.
And hopefully we will
NGOs
be part of the
working with the
ACLU or
governments, community
NAACP.
groups,
So
and the private sectors to develop and implement
Well,
programs
thank
to
you so much
monitor
for
and
talking about
evaluate
your
their process
experiences,
and help
discrimination based on
train
your
people
gender.
working
I
on
really
those
appreciate the
projects.
class and your professor really appreciated
NGOs are
it.
increasingly
And
taking
I'm
on the
sure you'll keep all your
responsibility of
grades.
implementing the gender equality and women's empowerment agendas of the global development sector. In India, for example, women's NGO in the state of Gujarat mobilize local communities to participate in urban development projects. They help form community-based organizations and represent local interests and implemented community developed projects such as health services, adult literacy, and childcare. Now I'll pass it on to Wu Ying.
Thank you, Jonathan. The World Women Report point out that global women life expectancy has increased, their health status has improved, and their education level has improved. But women and girls are still a victim of gender discrimination. There is still a huge gap in achieving gender equality globally. Statistics show that there are about 62 million more males than females in the world. At birth, there are more males than female babies, about 105 male babies to 400 female babies, which is a byproduct of the long-term natural selection method. The mortality, the mortality rate is generally higher than female. The slight advantage of males at birth gradually disappear in childhood and youth. After the age of 15, there are more women than men. Among the population 16 and over, women account for 54%. World Women Report states that women live across the world have improved, but achieving gender equality has a long way to go. Although the issue of women participation in politics has improved, the gap is huge. The report shows that although there are currently 19 female heads of state or government in the world, a slight increase from 12 in 1995, the number of female representatives among business managers, legislators, and senior officers is still very small, and none of them countries reach or exceed 50%, and only about half of countries reach 30% or higher. Let me tell you a cruel fact. In sub-Saharan Africa and South Asia, the proportion of girls who get married is as high as 40%. These girls will get married before the age of 18. The fertility rate of adolescents is still comparable in sub-Saharan Africa, Latin America, and the Caribbean. High and sub-Saharan maternal mortality rate is also very high. Thank you. And I will pass the mic to Sing.
The graph that shown in the video is about unadjusted gender gap in average hour wages. The most in this country is South Korean, which is 33.59%. This is because, according to the report 2014, social activity in South Korea published by the Korean Statistics Agency on January 7, researcher has conducted research on 12 regions, including South Korea, Japan, the United Kingdom, Germany, France, Norway, Finland, Denmark, Bahrain, the Philippines, and Taiwan. A survey of married men and women over 20 years old found that Korean couples share households not as badly as in the Northern Europe. The Northern Europe has almost more than half percentage more than Korean on sharing household value. The 2009 Living Time survey published by the Korean Statistics Agency in 2010 showed that the time spent by Korean adult men doing housework has increased slightly compared to the 5 years ago, but women still spend more time doing housework than men. A double pay family where both couples have to go out to work is no exception, and most of the burden of housework falls on women. This shows that male chauvinism still exists in contemporary Korean society. According to the researcher, in Japan and South Korea, most people have a fixed concept that men are responsible for making money to support the family. and women are responsible for taking care of the family. It's precisely because of the existence of this fixed notion that this investigation result is what we have seen in the end. So this is why South Korea has more percentage than other countries here. I'm going to pass back to Gavin.
Okay, so in conclusion, this documentary is unequivocal proof as
where we
to why
have
gender
these
equality
indexes,
should
there's reports such
be
as the State of
shown
the World's Mothers, the State of the World's
in the present.
Girls and so forth.
Thus,
So they're really
our
valuable
future
because
generations will be able to know
it really
the
does
importance
become
and how
a
crucial
basis
gender
of,
equality is for the community
well,
and
in
for
some cases, friendly competition,
this
but really
will eventually make the world
trying to learn from
better
each other.
place as
If you're able
everyone
to
will be
say
able to
in the next country
live
over,
peacefully with one another
women
and
experience
also
violence
synchronize properly
or
with
sexual
one another.
assault at a lower level.
Thank you very much
Well,
for
what are they
listening
doing
to
differently?
our presentation.
Do they have different
I hope
laws?
you all have
Do they
enjoyed
have
it.
different medical responses?
Have a
Are
nice
the police trained differently? Do they have education programs in schools? Are there religious leaders speaking out? What is it that makes a difference? So extending those, using this as a model for other parts of the world, other regions, I think is fantastic.